Open the window for me. All the way. The voice came in sharp, like the man outside the car wanted the air itself to obey him. Kofi Mercer kept both hands on the wheel and looked straight ahead. Not calm, focused. He had learned a long time ago that some people mistook silence for weakness and volume for authority. He did not give them either. "Sir," the officer said again, leaning into the open driver's window. "Put the phone down. Put the phone down." Kofi's phone was mounted near the center console, angled toward the window, recording. No flash, no drama. Just a red dot and a quiet certainty that facts would stay facts. "Officer," Kofi said, voice low, steady, "I'm recording for my own safety." The officer scoffed like that sentence offended him personally. "I don't know what you're doing there, what you're looking up, you little weirdo." Kofi blinked once, kept his eyes on the officer's badge number, kept his tone even. "Before we go further, tell me where you're watching from. City, state, country, drop it in the comments. And if you're here for dignity, fairness, and real accountability, hit like and subscribe. It helps these stories reach the people who need them." All right, back to it. The officer's nameplate read Wade Keller. His uniform was neat. His posture was not. He stood too close, like closeness was a weapon. "Open all the windows," Keller ordered. Kofi's gaze moved, slow, to the back seats. Empty. A clean car. A duffel bag on the passenger side floor. Nothing else. "Why do you need all the windows open?" Kofi asked. "I need you to open all the windows for me right now," Keller snapped, voice rising, head tilting as if he enjoyed being challenged. Kofi had been on enough scenes to recognize when a man wanted obedience more than safety. Still, he did not reach for pride. He reached for procedure. "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" he asked. Keller laughed without humor. "You know why I'm pulling you over right now?" "No, sir," Kofi replied. "I was driving behind you," Keller said, pointing at the road behind him like it was evidence, "and you were swerving. You didn't indicate turn signal." Kofi's eyes flicked to the street. Straight, quiet, mid-afternoon light, a few houses, a corner shop, palm trees that looked like they had never been in a hurry in their life. "I don't believe I was swerving," Kofi said. "I indicated before my turn." Keller leaned in closer. "You can record all you want. I mean, I don't know what you're doing there. Open all the windows." Kofi reached with his left hand and lowered the rear window halfway, then the front passenger window. Then he stopped. Keller's face tightened. "Why are you making this difficult?" Kofi looked at him. "I'm following your instruction. I'm also asking what the legal basis is for all windows down." Keller's eyes narrowed. "You want me to make your life difficult? 'Cause I love making people's lives difficult." There it was. Not safety, not service, not law, power. Spoken out loud like he was proud of it. Kofi's voice stayed the same. "I'm not here to argue, officer. I'm here to comply with lawful orders." "Good," Keller said, shifting, squaring his shoulders like he had won something. "Now, license, registration, proof of insurance. And get off your phone. Your little TikTok thing." "It's not TikTok," Kofi said. "It's recording." "You deaf?" Keller snapped, reaching one gloved hand toward the mount as if he might pull the phone right off the dash. Kofi's right hand tightened slightly on the wheel. Not a movement, a decision. "Please don't touch my phone," he said. Keller's mouth curled. "Call your supervisor," Kofi added, still steady. "I'd like a supervisor on scene." Keller's laugh came out loud enough to carry to the next driveway. "There is no supervisor. I'm the most senior officer on the road right now." Kofi stared for half a beat, then nodded once, like he had heard the statement and filed it under exactly what it was. "Understood," he said. "I'm going to comply. I'm also requesting a supervisor." Keller tilted his head. "I'll tell you what. I'd be that supervisor. I'm going to let you listen to my music. That's how we're going to play." Then he stepped back, and the tone changed like a switch flipped. "Step out the vehicle for me." Kofi didn't move right away. He was watching Keller's hands, watching the angle of his stance, watching for that moment when ego becomes danger. "Officer," Kofi said, "I'm going to get my documents. They're in the glove box in my wallet. I'm moving slowly. Keller leaned in again. Put the phone down. Listen, actually, you know what? Do you have any weapons on you? Anything not supposed to have on you in the car? Kofi did not like the way the question was asked. It wasn't a check. It was a trap, a way to paint him into a corner. I'm going to answer you clearly, Kofi said. I'm a lawful concealed carry permit holder. My firearm is secured. I will not reach for it. Tell me how you want to proceed. Keller's shoulders lifted like he smelled a story. So you got a gun? It's secured, Kofi repeated. I'm not touching it. Keller's voice sharpened. Put your hands up then. Hands up. Kofi raised both hands to shoulder height, palms open, fingers spread. He didn't jerk. He didn't snap. He didn't perform. He did what kept him alive. Keller shouted something into his radio. Numbers, codes. Kofi caught only the urgency. A neighbor's curtain twitched across the street. A dog barked once, confused by the sudden adrenaline. Keller's hand hovered near his own holster. Keep your hands up, he said. Do me a favor, don't move. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Kofi stared forward. I'm not moving. I'm complying. Keller stepped closer to the door, then paused like he was thinking about what to do next and who might be watching. Put your hands on the wheel, he said. Kofi lowered his hands and placed them back on the wheel, high and visible. Keller's voice dropped into something nastier. You're going to follow my directions, and this can go very easy. Kofi answered in the same tone he had used all along. I will follow lawful directions. Keller opened the door. Step out. Kofi stepped out slowly, keeping his body square, hands visible. The Florida sun hit his face. He blinked against it. Turn around, Keller ordered. Feet apart. Kofi complied. His heart did not race, but his mind did. He was counting everything. Words, distance, timing, witnesses. Keller's gloved hands patted him down. Too rough, too lingering. Like punishment, not procedure. Where's the gun? Keller demanded. It's secured, Kofi said. On my right side, inside waistband. Do not reach for it without telling me first. Keller smirked. Oh, you giving me instructions now? I'm giving you safety information, Kofi replied. Keller's hands moved up toward Kofi's chest, and Kofi felt it, that tiny shift, that moment when control becomes theater. Keller touched the chain around Kofi's neck, tugged lightly. A badge wallet sat under the collar of Kofi's shirt, flat against his chest. Not a gold star flashing for attention. Hidden, quiet, private. Keller's fingers paused. Kofi spoke carefully. Officer, that is identification. Please do not remove it. I will present it if you request. Keller ignored the request. He hooked the chain and pulled the wallet out into the light like he had found contraband. Oh, wow, Keller said loud again. On your chest, huh? So we lying today? Kofi's jaw tightened just a fraction. No. Keller leaned in. Gangbanger? Is that what you doing? Selling drugs? That what we doing? Kofi's voice stayed level. No, officer. Keller flipped the wallet open, and time did that thing it does when the truth arrives. It slowed. Not because the world changed, but because one man realized he might have made a career-ending mistake. Keller stared. His mouth opened slightly, then shut. Kofi watched him read it, watched the pupils shift, watched the ego scramble for an exit. Keller turned the wallet toward the sun, as if more light might make it different. Kofi spoke calmly. Special Agent Kofi Mercer, Federal Investigations Division. Keller swallowed. The loudness drained out of him like someone had pulled a plug. Why wouldn't you tell me? Keller stammered, suddenly softer, suddenly reasonable, suddenly wanting the world to rewind. Kofi did not take the bait. He did not gloat. He did not raise his voice. I requested a supervisor, he said, multiple times. Keller's head turned toward his radio like it was an enemy. He spoke into it, voice tight. Cancel that back up. Cancel it. Kofi's eyes stayed forward. Because the thing about power is, the moment you feel it, you can misuse it. Kofi wasn't there to trade arrogance for arrogance. He was there for accountability. Keller handed the wallet back with two hands, like it was fragile. "My bad," he mumbled. "Don't be making sudden movements. Lean against the car." Kofi leaned, still controlled. Keller tried to reset the script. "So you've been drinking today?" Kofi looked at him, unblinking. "No." "I smell alcohol," Keller said quickly, like he needed a reason that wasn't ego. "I smell alcohol coming from the vehicle." Kofi's tone didn't change. "There is no alcohol in my vehicle." Keller shifted his weight. The street around them felt different now, less like a stage and more like a scene. A car rolled past slowly. The driver glanced. The passenger stared. A phone lifted for half a second, then lowered. Kofi could feel the witness energy building, not saviors, witnesses. Keller spoke into his radio again, but this time the urgency sounded like fear. "The kind that comes when you realize the camera is not your friend," Kofi said softly, not for Keller's comfort, but for the record. "Officer Keller, you called me a weirdo. You said you love making people's lives difficult. You refused a supervisor request. You escalated without cause, and you handled my identification without consent." Keller's face tightened. "I don't know why you being like this," he snapped, trying to grow big again. Kofi nodded once. "Sequence, not story. The sequence is recorded." Keller stared at him. He didn't understand that phrase yet. He would. Minutes later, a patrol SUV pulled up and stopped behind Keller's car. A woman stepped out. Sergeant Tiana Brooks, early 40s, hair pulled back tight, body language like someone who had spent years cleaning up messes other people made for sport. She approached fast, eyes scanning, reading the scene in 5 seconds. "Keller," she said, not loud, just sharp. Keller pivoted like a child caught with his hand in a jar. "Sarge." Brooks looked at Kofi, then at the phone mount, then at the badge wallet chain resting back under Kofi's shirt. "Sir," she said to Kofi, voice measured. "Are you all right?" Kofi answered in the same calm tone. "I'm fine. I'm Special Agent Mercer. I requested a supervisor. Officer Keller refused, escalated, and conducted a search. I have video." Brooks's eyes flicked to Keller. "Is that true?" Keller's lips moved. No sound came out at first. Brooks turned slightly, angling her body so the camera on her own chest was facing them. Not as a threat, as a record. "Keller," she said again, "step back." Keller bristled. "Sarge, he didn't identify himself. He had a gun. He was recording, acting weird, swerving." Brooks held up one hand. "Stop. I'm going to ask you one question. Did he threaten you?" Keller hesitated. "No." "Did he refuse commands that were lawful and related to safety?" Brooks asked. Keller opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew the danger of saying yes when there was footage. Brooks nodded slowly. "All right, sir," she said to Kofi. "I'm going to request your license and permit, not as a punishment, as documentation. Is that all right?" Kofi's shoulders eased just slightly. "Yes, Sergeant." Brooks watched his hands. "Move slowly. Narrate what you're doing." Kofi reached into his pocket and produced his wallet. He handed over a driver's license, a concealed carry permit, and a second card that was not flashy, just official enough to make Keller's face go pale again. Brooks read it. Her expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. "Agent Mercer," she said. "Thank you. Officer Keller, go sit in your unit." Keller's head snapped up. "What?" Brooks's tone stayed flat. "Go sit in your unit." Keller looked around like he expected someone to laugh and tell him it was a prank. No one did. The street had gone quiet. Even the dog had stopped barking. Keller walked back to his car, stiff. Brooks turned back to Kofi. "Tell me, in your words, what happened from the beginning." And Kofi did not give her a speech. He gave her a sequence. He told her the initial instruction, the demand to open all windows, the insults about recording, the statement about loving to make people's lives difficult, the refusal of a supervisor, the sudden command to step out, the search, the way Keller pulled his credentials without consent, the attempt to claim alcohol, the radio call for backup, the cancellation once the credentials were seen. Brooks listened without interrupting. That kind of listening is rare. It is also dangerous to people who rely on noise. When Kofi finished, Brooks nodded and looked at his phone mount. "Is your video backed up?" she asked. Kofi answered honestly. "It uploads to a secure cloud when I have signal." Brooks's mouth tightened, just a fraction. She glanced toward Keller's car again. "Agent Mercer," she said quietly, "I'm going to be transparent. This is going to turn into a situation. You know that." Kofi nodded. "I do." Brooks exhaled, then lifted her radio. "Dispatch, I need a unit to relieve Officer Keller. Also, notify Watch Commander. I have a use of authority concern. Start an incident report. Time now." A crackle of radio response, a confirmation. Kofi looked at Brooks. "Thank you for taking it seriously." Brooks held his gaze. "I take the job seriously. Some people take the uniform personally." Kofi didn't smile. He simply said, "That's the difference." While they waited for the watch commander, a neighbor walked out onto a porch, arms folded, watching. A woman in a bright blue blouse, older, maybe late 60s. The kind of person who had seen enough to recognize patterns. She called out, not loud, just clear. "Sergeant, I heard him. That officer. I heard what he said from my kitchen." Brooks turned. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Evelyn Hart," the woman replied. "And I'm telling you, he was disrespectful. I heard it." Brooks nodded. "Thank you, Miss Hart. Would you be willing to provide a statement?" Evelyn didn't hesitate. "Yes." Kofi looked at Evelyn, and his eyes softened for half a second. Witnesses. Another car slowed at the intersection. A young man leaned out slightly, phone in hand. He didn't get close, he kept distance. He filmed from the far side. He was not trying to be a hero. He was trying to keep the truth intact. Brooks noticed. She didn't yell at him to stop. She didn't perform authority. She simply stayed procedural. The watch commander arrived 10 minutes later. Lieutenant Marcus Dale, a man who walked up with the tired look of someone who knew every mistake had a price tag, and he was the one who got the bill. "Sergeant Brooks," he said. Brooks briefed him in short phrases, efficient, factual. Dale turned to Kofi. "Agent Mercer, I'm Lieutenant Dale. I'm sorry you experienced that." Kofi's voice remained calm. "Lieutenant, I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for documentation." Dale nodded. "Understood. Sergeant, separate Keller from the scene. Agent Mercer, I'd like to get you somewhere shaded while we take statements." Kofi nodded once. "That's fine." Keller, watching from his car, looked like a man seeing the consequences arrive in real time. He kept glancing at the street like he hoped it would empty out and swallow the evidence with it. It didn't. Evelyn Hart gave her statement, clear and direct. "He called him a weirdo. I heard that. He said he loved making people's lives difficult. I heard that too." The young man across the street, named Jameer Vance, agreed to send his video. He made sure he captured the part where the officer's voice escalated and the part where it suddenly softened after the credentials. Kofi's own recording held the rest, the inside of the car, the command to open all windows, the insult, the threat, the refusal of a supervisor, the tone, sequence, not story. Keller tried one last time to rebuild his narrative. He told Lieutenant Dale that Kofi was uncooperative, that he smelled alcohol, that he feared for safety. But it landed flat, because the lie had no place to rest. The footage had already removed the cushions. Lieutenant Dale made the decision on the spot. "Officer Keller," he said, "you are relieved of duty pending review. Turn over your body cam." Keller's face flushed. "This is ridiculous." He didn't identify himself. Kofi looked at Keller with contained disappointment. "I asked for a supervisor. You refused. You escalated. Then you grabbed my credentials. You created this." Dale's voice was firm. "Hand it over." Keller unclipped the camera with shaking hands. A small, pathetic sound came out of him, like he wanted to be angry, but realized anger would only make him look guilty. Dale turned to Kofi. "Agent Mercer, do you want to press charges?" Kofi's answer was careful. "I want you to follow policy. I want the report filed. I want the footage preserved. I want every log and every radio transmission secured. That's what I want." Dale nodded. We can do that. Brooks looked at Kofi. Agent Mercer, she said quietly, if you're federal, you're probably going to hear more about this than we will. Kofi met her eyes. Maybe, but I want you to hear this. I see you. Doing it right matters, especially when it's inconvenient. Brooks's face softened for half a second. Thank you. Now, here's what most people don't understand. The viral moment is the badge reveal. The satisfaction is watching the bully shrink. But the real story begins after the cameras stop being entertaining and start being evidence. Because Kofi wasn't just driving home from lunch, he was driving to meet a woman named Nia Sutter, a local accountant who had quietly flagged something wrong in a city contract, small numbers that didn't add up, a pattern of lost receipts, a line item that moved like it had legs. Nia wasn't loud, she wasn't political, she was precise. And precision makes certain people nervous. She had agreed to talk to federal investigators because she had already tried the official route locally, and suddenly she was getting pulled over. Not once, not twice, over and over, always for swerving, always for turn signal, always for something that gave an officer room to stand too close and ask too many questions. Kofi had been assigned as the quiet handoff. Meet Nia, get the documents, move them into a chain of custody that could not be corrupted by local ego. And now, by pure arrogance, Officer Keller had stepped right into the middle of that. When Lieutenant Dale promised to preserve the logs, Kofi took him at his word. But he also knew how this sometimes went. Files misplaced, timestamps corrupted, radios malfunctioning, cameras not activated, paperwork delayed until the heat cooled off. So Kofi did what he always did. He built redundancy. He called his supervisor, Special Agent Sana Patel, and he did it on speaker so the record would catch it. "Shra, Sana," Kofi said, "I've just been stopped by local PD escalation. Search. Credentials pulled. Sergeant and lieutenant on scene. Witnesses present. I'm safe. I need immediate preservation request for body cam, dash cam, radio logs, and dispatch CAD." Sana's voice came through crisp. "Understood. Do you have footage?" "Yes." "Good," Sana said. "Do not debate anyone. Do not negotiate for fairness. Ask for procedure. I'll send the paperwork now." Kofi looked at Lieutenant Dale. "Lieutenant, you're going to receive a preservation request. Please comply fully." Dale nodded. "We will." But Kofi watched Dale's eyes. He saw the flicker, the calculation, the fear of what the footage might reveal about more than just Keller. Because good men get nervous too when the system they work in has rot they did not plant, but might have watered by silence. Kofi left the scene after statements were taken. Brooks escorted him back to his car and stood by while he got in, like a quiet apology the department couldn't say out loud. As Kofi drove away, his phone buzzed. A message from Nia. "Are you still coming? I saw police lights down the street." Kofi dictated a reply. "I'm on my way. I'm safe. Do not move your documents until I'm there." He turned left at the next junction and felt the weight of the day settle into his chest. Not fear. Responsibility. If you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to provoke you and you had to choose calm over ego, I want you to tell me in the comments. What did you do? And did it save you? When Kofi arrived at the cafe, Nia was already seated in the back, posture tight, hands wrapped around a paper cup like warmth was the only thing holding her together. She was a black woman in her 30s with tired eyes and a neat braid tucked behind one ear. She looked like someone who had been carrying anxiety like a handbag. Kofi approached and gave a small nod. "Nia." She stood halfway, then sat again. "You're real." Kofi offered a brief smile. "I'm real." Nia's eyes flicked to the window. "Was that you down the street? The traffic stop?" Kofi sat opposite. "Yes." Her face tightened. "They do that. They do it to scare you. They make you feel like you're one step from a mistake." Kofi leaned in slightly. "That's why I'm here. To remove your information from their reach." Nia's hands trembled as she slid a plain envelope across the table. Not dramatic, just paper. But paper can be heavier than steel when it's the paper that tells the truth. Kofi didn't open it in the cafe. He simply touched it, confirming it existed, and kept his eyes on Nia. "Tell me what you found," he said. Nia swallowed. "It started with a relief program, housing repairs after the storms last year. People applied. Some got rejected for no reason. I was contracted to oversee the financial controls, and I noticed payments to vendors that didn't exist." Kofi nodded. "Shell companies." Nia's voice dropped, and the addresses on the vendor files were empty lots, but the approvals were signed off every time by the same chain of names: city procurement, then a deputy chief in police, then a counselor's office. Kofi's eyes stayed steady. "Deputy chief in police?" Nia nodded, eyes wet. "When I raised it internally, they told me I was confused. Then the stops began. Then an officer came to my house just to check if I was okay. He stood on my porch too long, smiled too much, and I realized they wanted me to feel watched." Kofi kept his voice calm. "You did the right thing coming to us." Nia's laugh was bitter. "It doesn't feel right. It feels dangerous." Kofi's expression softened. "It is dangerous. That's why we do it by the book." He explained chain of custody. He explained how her documents would be logged, duplicated, and secured. He explained that her statement would be taken with protection measures, and that any intimidation would become its own charge. Nia listened like someone drinking water after a long drought. Then she asked the question that always sits under the surface for people like her. "Do you think they'll come for me?" she whispered. Kofi met her eyes. "They may try, but trying is not the same as succeeding. We built structure around you, not hope. Structure." As Kofi escorted Nia out through the side exit, his phone buzzed again. A notification, a message from Sergeant Brooks. "Agent Mercer, I just heard from dispatch. Your stop is being discussed. Keller is angry. He's saying you set him up." Kofi stared at the message, then typed back. "I did not set him up. He documented himself." He put the phone away and walked Nia to her car. He waited until she drove off, then returned to his own vehicle and sat for a moment, breathing. He understood something that day, fresh and sharp. Some people do not fear the truth. They fear the record. The next morning, as predicted, the department tried to control the narrative. A short statement hit local social media. "Officer involved in a misunderstanding with an off-duty law enforcement professional. No misconduct found. Investigation ongoing. It was fast, too fast. Like they wanted to seal the jar before the smell escaped." Kofi didn't argue online. He didn't posture. He did what he always did. He pulled the sequence. Sana Patel filed preservation requests. Their federal legal team followed with formal notices. They requested all footage from Keller's body cam, Keller's dash cam, Brooks's body cam, and any nearby cameras. Then, something happened that told Kofi everything he needed to know. The department replied that Keller's body cam had a malfunction for a portion of the stop. A portion, not the whole thing, just enough to be convenient. Kofi stared at the email. Then he called Sana. "They're missing a segment," he said. Sana's voice was calm. "Are you surprised?" Kofi exhaled. "No." "Do we have your phone footage?" Sana asked. "Yes," Kofi said. "Full sequence." Sana paused. "Good. Then we don't panic. We proceed." Kofi looked out of his office window at the bright day outside. Palm trees swaying like nothing mattered, sunlight spilling over a city that had no idea what was about to come to its doorstep. He said quietly, "This is why people don't trust them." Sana replied, "And this is why we document, not to win arguments, to win outcomes." Over the next 2 weeks, the case tightened. Nia's documents revealed a web of fake vendors. The fake vendors led to bank transfers. The transfers led to a local businessman with city ties. The businessman led to a deputy chief who had been quietly living above his salary. And when federal investigators began pulling records, the department started circling its wagons. Kofi noticed patrol cars slowing near his hotel. He noticed a cruiser idling at the end of a street when he met with Naya's solicitor. He noticed how often his name appeared in local chatter. He did not react. He simply added more witnesses, more logs, more redundancy. Sergeant Brooks became one of those witnesses, whether she wanted to be or not. One evening, she called Kofi from a private number. "They're pressuring me," she said, voice low. Kofi kept his tone gentle. "Who is they?" Brooks hesitated. "People above my pay grade." Kofi nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "What do they want?" "They want me to change my report," Brooks said, and her voice tightened on the last word. "They want me to say Keller acted reasonably, that he smelled alcohol, that you were uncooperative." Kofi's voice stayed calm. "And what did you say?" Brooks exhaled. "I said my report is my report." Kofi paused. "That choice will cost you." "I know," Brooks replied. "But I didn't join to lie." Kofi spoke softly. "You're not alone. I want you to save every message, every call, every instruction, date, time, who said it." Brooks let out a small, tired laugh. "Sequence, not story." Kofi allowed himself a small smile. "Exactly." A week later, Lieutenant Dale called Kofi. "Agent Mercer," he said, tone cautious, "I want to meet off-site." Kofi's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why?" Dale hesitated. "Because I can't trust my own building." Kofi met him in a quiet diner at the edge of town. Neutral, bright, cameras overhead. Dale arrived in plain clothes, looking like a man carrying a secret too heavy for his badge. "I'm not here to make excuses," Dale said, sliding into the booth. "I'm here because I have a problem." Kofi remained still. "Talk," Dale swallowed. "Our dispatch system has been altered, logs edited, calls recategorized. The Keller stop segments were tagged wrong, not by accident." Kofi stared at him. "You're telling me your system is being manipulated?" Dale nodded. "I can't prove it without access to the back end, and the back end is controlled by someone who is friends with the deputy chief." Kofi held Dale's gaze. "Why are you telling me this?" Dale's voice dropped. "Because if I don't, I'm complicit, and because I heard Keller say something after he was relieved." Kofi didn't move. "What did he say?" Dale looked down, then back up. He said, "I shouldn't have touched him. They told us not to touch him." Kofi felt the air change. "They told us," Kofi repeated, slow. Dale nodded, eyes tired. "Which means this wasn't random. This was a department with a list." Kofi leaned back slightly, not because he was shocked, but because the truth was now shaping itself into a clean, prosecutable form. He spoke calmly. "Lieutenant, what you do next matters. If you want to be a good man in a bad system, you don't do it by being quiet." Dale nodded. "Tell me what to do," Kofi said. "You document, you preserve, you cooperate." Dale hesitated. "And if they come for me?" Kofi replied, "Then you will not be alone either, but you have to choose the record over the room." Dale swallowed hard. "All right." What followed was not a viral montage of shame. It was slow justice, the kind that doesn't trend but changes lives. Federal subpoenas landed, bank records were pulled, vendor addresses were verified. A forensic analyst traced edits in the dispatch system to a specific login. That login belonged to a supervisor who had been promoted too quickly and asked too few questions. And then the deputy chief, the one tied to procurement, made a mistake. He tried to intimidate Nia directly. He didn't show up in uniform. He showed up as a family friend, smiling at her in a supermarket aisle like he owned the place. Nia froze, clutching a basket, heart in her throat. He leaned in and said softly, "You should stop talking to people who can't protect you." Nia didn't scream. She didn't make a scene. She did something better. She walked to the car park, got into her car, and called Kofi. Her hands shook, but her voice was clear. "He approached me," she said. "He threatened me." Kofi's reply was calm. "Did you get his words on recording?" Nia paused. "No." Kofi said gently, "That's all right. We create witnesses. Where are you?" Nia told him. Kofi contacted Sana. Sana contacted their team. Within hours, a formal notice was filed. Within 2 days, the deputy chief's phone records were requested, and cameras from the supermarket were pulled, not for audio, for proximity, for pattern, for proof that he was there at the time she said he was. Sequence, not story. At the same time, Sergeant Brooks submitted a supplemental report, not emotional, not dramatic, simply stating that she had been pressured to alter her initial statement. That document, more than anything, shifted the ground. Because when a supervisor says in writing, "I was asked to lie," the system has to respond, even if it doesn't want to. The city tried to get ahead of it. A press conference, smiles, vague statements about transparency, promises of internal review. Kofi watched it once, then turned it off. He wasn't interested in theater. He was interested in outcomes. Then the arrests came. Not all at once. Not in a satisfying single clip. They came in layers. First, the fake vendor operator. Then, the procurement official. Then, the dispatch supervisor who edited logs. Then, finally, the deputy chief. When the deputy chief was led out of the building, Kofi didn't feel joy. He felt relief. The kind that comes when the pressure stops sitting on your chest. Nia called Kofi that night, voice trembling. "They took him," she whispered. "They actually took him." Kofi's voice was warm. "They took him because the record held." Nia started to cry, quiet, like she'd been holding that fear so long she didn't know what to do with the space now that it was gone. "They made me feel crazy," she said. "They made me feel small." Kofi replied, "They needed you to feel small so they could feel big. That's all it ever was." Nia sniffed. "What happens now?" Kofi said, "Now we rebuild, not with slogans, with structure." He told her about the restitution process for the storm relief funds, how recovered money could be redirected, how the city would be forced to audit its own programs, how independent oversight could be installed. Nia listened. Then she said something Kofi did not expect. "I don't want to just move on," she said. "I want to make sure this doesn't happen again." Kofi nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "Then you turn pain into protocol." And that's what they did. Nia helped craft a whistleblower reporting pathway that bypassed local chains when the complaint involved law enforcement. She worked with attorneys to create a clean, protected process. She helped set up a community oversight panel with real access to audit outcomes, not performative meetings, real access. Sergeant Brooks, despite being sidelined and pushed to a quieter shift, became a trainer for de-escalation and lawful stops. She taught younger officers that respect is not optional, it is the foundation. Lieutenant Dale resigned 6 months later, not in shame, in clarity. He took a role in an accountability office where he could help build systems instead of defending broken ones. Officer Keller was suspended first, then fired, then charged with evidence tampering when it was proven he had failed to turn over a complete body cam file on a separate stop, weeks before Kofi's incident. And here's the part people don't like to admit. Keller didn't fall because Kofi was federal. He fell because Keller couldn't stop himself from being Keller in front of a camera. Kofi didn't win by shouting. He won by refusing to become the villain in someone else's story. Because that's how it works. They want you reactive. They want you loud. They want you messy. They want you to give them one frame where they can point and say, "See, that's why we did it." Kofi gave them nothing but sequence. At the end of it all, Kofi sat alone in his office late one evening. The city quiet outside, the case files stacked neat, the outcome finally settled. He replayed the first minutes of the stop once more. The insult, the threat, the line that still sat sour in his mind. "I love making people's lives difficult." He paused the video and stared at the still frame of Keller's face, close and confident, before the truth arrived. Then he thought about Nia's hands shaking in the cafe. Evelyn Hart stepping onto her porch and choosing to speak. Jameer Vance, filming from a distance, not trying to be a hero, just trying to keep the truth alive. Sergeant Brooks refusing to rewrite history. Lieutenant Dale choosing the record over the room, witnesses. And Kofi understood the lesson in a way that felt almost tender. Dignity is not a mood. It is a practice. Accountability is not a shout. It is a system. He picked up his phone and texted Sana. Case closed. Outcome secured. Evidence held. Sana replied a minute later. Good work. Same rule tomorrow. Kofi smiled, small, to himself. Sequence, not story. He turned off the light, locked the door, and walked out into the warm night air. And somewhere, in some other car, on some other street, another person was being tested by someone who thought authority meant ownership. Kofi hoped they would remember this. Keep your voice steady. Keep your hands visible. Ask for a supervisor. Record if you can. Don't debate ego. Document sequence. Because the truth does not need your rage to be real. It only needs a record. And if this story left you with one thing, let it be this. When someone tries to shrink you with intimidation, do not become smaller. Become clearer. Be so clear that the facts can carry you. Be so clear that the system has no space to hide. That is how you survive the moment, and that is how you change what comes after it, one recorded sequence at a time. And just before you go, I'll leave you with a quiet question. If you were in that driver's seat, would you have stayed steady, or would you have given them the reaction they were hoping for?